Hi, it's Tracy from Crafty Misty. Today I'm going to be sharing my first Christmas card with you. I'm using that stamp set that's from Inkadinkado. Thought it was just really cute for colouring. I've got a piece of white cardstock and I've cut that out with one of Lawn Fawn's large stitched rectangle dies. And I'm going to be using my Tim Holtz distress markers to do some colouring on them. First colour that I'm using is Tattered Rose, and I'm also using Spun Sugar and Antique Linen, and I'm going to use those three colours just to do the face. All I do to colour is draw some of the marker on a clear acrylic block and then just put water on it and use my brush. I'm not using watercolour paper, which I should have really. If I did it again I would, but I didn't have any, so I just used what I had. Using some more Antique Linen. Just really simply colouring these people in, and I'm using some brush corduroy to do some of the darker areas on them. I'm going to use some pumice stone . I've actually had this stamp set for about 2 or 3 years, and this is the first time I've ever used it. So I'm using some festive berries and some aged mahogany just to put some red details on it because it was all looking a bit muted. And take that darker aged mahogany just to put some shading around his hat, as it's quite a big area. I didn't want it to just look one flat colour. I'm taking some more brush corduroy to put some shading on his outfit. I tended to only put shading on if it was one of the larger areas. I've taken some vintage photo for his beard. Just darkening up some of the details there with the hair and the little girl's teddy bear. And then the last colour that I'm going to take is Rusty Hinge, and I just use that for on his crown and some other tiny little details just to bring a little bit more of that colour in. And then I'm going to set that aside to dry and work on the background piece. I'm using Broken China Distress ink, and as you can see it wasn't blending on this cardstock at all, so I got annoyed and just used the whole ink pad and I just smushed it across the paper. And then I just used my blending tool with the same colour ink on it just to try and soften it up a little bit. And I found that just brushing it over just helped, so it didn't look quite so harsh. I'm going to take my next colour of distress ink, which is Faded Jeans, and I'm just going to lightly bring that in on the edges just so that it's not one flat colour. And as you can see, it really didn't want to blend again, but there was no other way to do this bit, so I just persevered. And honestly, you're only going to see some of the edges anyway. Now I'm just putting some droplets of water and then picking them up with paper towel to make that nice effect on the back. Now I went back to my colouring piece and just used a very light touch just to put some shading down on the floor and some blue around the sky. I probably would have stopped before I did, because looking at it I think I went a bit overboard with the sky, but never mind, it's supposed to look handmade. And next I just took my white pen, which is a Signo Uniball Broad white pen, and I just did some dash lines around the edge, and then I've put some Tombow glue on the back of my picture piece and just stuck it on my background there. And it was at this point that I forgot that I was going to do some stamping on the background as well. Just putting that block on there to hold it down, as it did warp a little bit, because as I said, it wasn't watercolour paper. So I really wanted that to stick down well and not warp and lift up. And I've got a small snowflake stamp that I just dab my white distress paint on top of it. Now I don't use that paint a lot, but I do love it. And so I just put that all around the edge. Just make sure that you put the paint on every single time, otherwise you're going to have lines where it did stamp and didn't stamp, and you don't want that to show up on your project. So even though I forgot to do them first, I do like the way that it turned out. So I think that the white sets it off and it sort of looks like a bokeh background. And that is my finished card, and I've just mounted it on a card base there, and I've used one of the sentiments from the stamp set which says "Happy Birthday Jesus." I thought that was quite cute, so I've stamped that inside with some Stays On black ink, and that is my finished card. If I had some sequins I would have probably put some of those around the top part, but otherwise I really liked it. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you soon for a new card video.